Oh boy, this should be an adventure. Hello everyone, this, you are watching me through, is I believe a 2017 Samsung Galaxy A3 phone, which is very much on its last legs. It is fully charged at 100%, and today I'm going to see if I can build an Antweight, not a good Antweight, but see if I can build an Antweight before this phone runs out of power and stops recording. This is going to be an unedited, however long video it is. I'm coming into this with absolutely no plan. I basically want to have a little pair of Antweights. Now I've got a second transmitter, I want a little pair of Antweights that I can take into school and have some fights with. First of all, between the adults, because, you know, we've earned it. And then eventually I want to be able to give these to the kids and them be sort of controllable enough for them to feel like they're doing a good job driving them. That's as far as I've got, that set of criteria. Obviously, if they're going into school, they need to be safe. Of course, you know, any Antweight I want to be safe to handle, but in this case I want to go a little further. I'm limiting myself to plastics. I won't be using any metal because, let's face it, if I scratch the table or the floor, I would probably be fired immediately. And I want these to be things that, you know, kids can pick up without having to worry about any sharp edges or anything like that. That's it. Most people would have thought this through more. All I've done is put a table out, got out the tools I think I need, and started. So, I suppose I have gone as far as preparing some components as well. So first of all, continuous rotation servos, much slower, and I hope therefore much more controllable than the typical N20s. Also cheaper, but that's totally not why I did that. Simple two-wheel drive, just because this is going to be a speed build. I also want to give them a weapon to use. I don't want these to purely be pushing matches. So I've got another servo here. This is a Turnigy 9D. 9-gram servo. Aiming to do some kind of lifting arm. I'm torn between trying to do a proper wedge with a lifting arm and doing a box with a lifting arm that will be a bit easier to make. I'm not quite sure what direction I want to go in with that. I think the wedge will look better, but it's also, I don't know, is it more likely to look crap? Because I'm trying to do this quite quickly, partly for the fun of this video, but also because I have a day off and I don't want to spend my whole day off doing this, basically. This is kind of experimental. I want to have a bit of fun doing it, but I don't want to be in here all day, especially because it looks like we're about to have a massive storm outside. So quick is good, but I still want there to be some visual appeal to it and some quality. This is something that, you know, these robots are going to be giving kids their first experience of this sport, and I do want to make sure that's a positive experience. So it's hard to know what the right thing to do is. I've got some polycarb around. I've got some foam board around. Polycarb is the right thing to use. Foam board is the easy thing to use. Not quite sure what way I'm going to go on that. I don't actually know. How much polycarb do I even have in here? Please don't tell me I'm going to have to start this video by running to a different place and finding my stash of polycarb. To the spare parts bin!
Diddle-diddle-dee.
So this is my leftover materials box that all the small bits go into. So we have the remains of Wedginold. Ooh! Heat bending could be an option for this, actually. And, okay, this is the extent of my polycarb scraps. I'm going to need, if I use polycarb, I'm going to need a proper sheet of polycarb for this. Because that's not going to be wide enough for the two servos. Or is it? If I build tall instead of building wide, could I do the two servos back to back on that? Although it's still going to leave the challenge of where batteries and things go. Oh yeah, another thing I'd love to be able to do on this. I don't want to be unscrewing panels and things to do a battery change. If I'm going to take this into school, then I'm probably going to need more than a single charge of the small batteries that I have. That could work. That could actually work. I didn't expect that. Obviously, this doesn't need to be cube compliant or anything like that. That's not a concern at all. So if I had that... Right. I'm really anxious that the lighting is terrible, and I just need to get over that. This is not a Sam-produced video, this is a Ryan-produced video, with all the lack of quality that entails. I'm also not going to do anything that involves soldering today, because soldering stresses me out. So if that was roughly there, and that was roughly there, with the way too long wires that I'm not going to get around to shortening, could stack a weapon servo on top. That's not going to happen with me holding it, but let's say that went kind of there-ish. Okay, imagine it's flat. Fine. Whatever you want, servo. You're clearly the boss here. And then... and battery. See, I'd love to have some kind of method that lets me just hot switch a battery. Haven't worked out what that method is yet. Don't know how I'm going to do that safely and quickly. This really... I'm so worried about this being decent that I probably shouldn't be trying to speed build it, but here we are. So if a battery could fit in there... well, it wouldn't be that way. So if they were hot glued down, because obviously hot glue is the answer here, and a battery that kind of slid in that way, maybe with something across... this is so hard for you to see, I'm sorry. Maybe with something across there to retain it and stop it sliding forwards. The receiver would fit there quite nicely. Question is it being longer and thinner a good thing or a bad thing? Because if you take Phil, for example, and this is partly because of the need for cube compliance. If you look at the bottom of Phil, yes, it's a little bit longer than it is wide, but it's by and large basically a square. Yeah, the top profile looking down, especially if you consider the wheels as where the width is rather than the body, is basically a square. And this thing drives really nicely. You know, I could drive it to some wind, so it can't be that bad as a robot to drive. I don't know if giving them something long and thin, especially if I want them to be able to use the weapon, is a good thing or not. Although I feel like, let's face it, the kids I'm thinking of giving this to are 5, 6, and 7. Are they going to be doing any kind of good and useful driving anyway? Do I even worry about it? I guess I at least should be able to show them it being driven well. Again, first experience of robot combat. Success has to be an option. But I also don't want very long fights. Man, this is trickier than I expected already. Let me get the design book out. I think this needs some actual design going into it. Design book is a very grandiose term for what I'm about to get at. It's literally just a pad of squared paper that I use to draw designs on to cut out. It's really... I mean, you've got all the old versions of... oh, there's the one that I tried to print out that never came out of the correct scale. That was the very first design of Tropical Storm Phil, made out of 5mm foam board. It kind of worked, I suppose. So... just a random empty page, why not? I'm not messing around here. Speed build! Speed build! Clear stuff away to places that I won't find it later and will get stressed out. You, get out of here. I'm sure this is how the pros do it, right? The pro YouTubers who know what they're doing. So I'm thinking... that this pen might not work. Oh, hey, it does. That's a strange thing in this head. So I'm wondering if we go kind of original chaos shape almost, which is kind of a simplified version of how the first Phil was. So if we imagine kind of the profile of a servo here, ideally with the wheel coming out of the back, just so that I can give it a good wheeling opportunity. Oh, great circle, Ryan. 10 out of 10. The battery is then kind of sitting behind that. I might then... this is going to require some internal mounting that might be stressful, but I think it's worth it. I can then very simply have the weapon servo up here with its pivot as far forward as possible, and then either a kind of bent arm, or if I can, just a straight arm, because that'll be easier to make, down as a kind of front lifter. I'm also planning, normally I'd be really stressing right now about whether that self-rights. I think it would actually be better if it doesn't self-right, because that means that if these kids are good at driving these and can actively win fights through use of a weapon, it means that one good use of a weapon will end a fight, which means we can keep the pace up, which means we can get lots of people involved, which is always what we're trying to do in school. Especially once we're back to classes of 30 instead of 10. The question is how best to do that. I don't want to have to leave this room and get more polycarb. So maybe... This isn't very wide. So a heat bend on this wouldn't take too long. So what if we went with a little heat bend, just of whatever length this comes out to. I'm at least going to get a ruler and measure this. Come on, this is basics. So this is 126 millimeters. Oh yeah, and I'm flipping you off right now. Have fun with that. Cat's up to something. Just check. No, he's not trying to get in. That's good. Be mega for views, I know, but that's 125 millimeters. How much height am I realistically going to need on a sort of stack up of this stuff? So if I imagine, let's use the one that doesn't have a servo horn on it. That makes life a bit easier. Is that how it be? Yeah. So again, if we're thinking of this as, oh hey, I almost did the size of the battery perfectly. That's not like me at all. And then it would be another servo sort of atop that. Oh hey, I accidentally nailed the size. Obviously, I'm going to need a lot more room for wiring than that. In fact, I haven't even accounted for the receiver in that, so I'm going to want to go bigger. So that is 50 and 30. So even accounting for a bend radius in this, I can realistically probably give it. Feels weird using a marker and a ruler. That's the name of this piece of equipment. So I could probably realistically give it a 70 by 50. Wow, that's huge. And obviously there would be a bit of bend radius in that, which would probably cut this down a little. But that seems like a more realistic size. I might even go... Might actually have to go lower and longer, you know? Because the whole point was to get this servo fairly neatly up at the top. So that was about 35. Let's say I went with 40. That'd be about that. And one of the things with heat bending is that you do lose the ability to kind of push components right back into that corner. It's kind of hard to see, but on film, the radius was about as tight as I could get it, but it still did mean that I couldn't get the motors as far up to the back as I wanted, just because of the mounts more than anything. Couldn't quite tuck into that corner nicely. Didn't make a difference. I was still just able to get the wheels on the ground, sort of if it was on its back, but it was pretty tight. Although the advantage I have here is that I'm going to have to make my own wheels anyway, so I guess I can just make the wheels as big as they need to be. So let's say we went 40, which theoretically, even though it probably won't actually pan out this way, theoretically gives me about an 18mm length. This might actually be this will be cube compliant at this rate. So we know there'll be a little radius in there. So if there's such thing as a critical dimension in this design, I suppose it is the height. That ideally wants to come out at about 40. About. If it's a little less, I think I can deal with it. So that'll be the sort of polycarb base. I think the top and the sides I would do out of foam board just because that's quick and easy to work with. So I guess I should get down to the fun and stress of some heat bending. I will also check that message, because while I'm building, I'm waiting for a cheeky little message from the one and only Joe Brown. And that's not from him, so we will let that wait for another moment. He's making something fun for me. Oh, heat bending, haven't done this in a while. I'm going to need gloves. Where are my good new gloves? There are my good new gloves. Safety third. So new that I haven't actually separated them yet. So I've done this twice, I think. Twice? Yeah, so once on Reginald and once on Phil. And the way I've done it probably isn't the best. In fact, I've just realised I should probably open the door for ventilation while I do this, because this can get fumy. Enjoy the sounds of nature. I don't know why I'm putting gloves on yet either. I haven't got all the stuff out. So the way I've always done it is just using a bit of wood as a nice 90-degree turn. I would normally be using a shorter bit, but it's what's currently mounting the camera. This might become a theme as we go on, because pretty much all of my good clamps are also mounting the camera. Where is my square? I've got a square somewhere. Come on, square, where are you? Under all the stuff I just dumped down? Of course, where else would you be? Expect a lot of this as we go forward. Lost tools. Is it behind the laptop? No. Give it 20 more seconds and I'm giving up on the tool. There we are. It's got a quick little square. Tend to work quite near the end just because that gives me more clamping options for the workpiece itself. If anybody wants to see how to properly do a good job of heat bending plastics, Greg from WeWoo, Team Health and Safety, fantastic YouTube tutorial on doing this well and to dimensions, you know, actually accounting for the sort of bend back. When you bend something, you bend it where you want it, and as it cools, it will just kind of bend back a bit. I think he might even have started going into detail on how to calculate that kind of thing. Who calculates things? I barely even measured that. So, my good clamps. Where are my good clamps that I've got left? There's one. Is that even going to be big enough? Just big enough. So let's start getting this on here. Really hard trying to do this, like so a camera can see it. Again, maybe not the most conducive thing for speed building, having a camera out. Okay, I'm not cut out for this. I'm really not cut out for this. I'm just getting stressed by the fact there's a clock on everything. There we go, look at that. That's so much easier. Just going to get this roughly in place for now. Didn't do this near enough to the end, but I'm not redoing it now. And of course, while it's nice that I have this guideline, it does all kind of hinge on me having got the cut that I made in this material, whenever I made it, straight in the first place. So I think that one might be enough. How much overhang? Okay, eyeballing that didn't go well. But that's fine. That's fine. We improvise, we adapt, we overcome. So what I'm trying to do here is just get it roughly in position. And then I can kind of nudge it and tweak it to actually be fully correct. And then everything can go wrong in the bending process anyway. Come on. Dyspraxic building. Gotta love it. There we are, so that's that one in. There we go, and we're just on 40mm. I'm going to give it a little more just because, as I say, this is the slightly more critical dimension. I want to make sure that there's kind of at least that 40. If it's a couple of mil over, I'm fine with that. If it's under, that would be a big annoyance. So now we can get the... That probably wasn't important. Get the other clamp on. Just as happens when we're recording an episode of Spinnerproof, I'm constantly having title ideas for this video pop into my head, and over the last about 3 minutes they've become significantly more self-deprecating than when they started. So that's all in position. My plan, very simply, is to have a barbecue lighter that I'm going to use to heat this area. When it gets floppy enough, and probably a little bit bubbly, it's not going to be a nice surface finish, I'm really not that worried. Once it starts to get a bit bendy, it's just a question of pushing it sort of over this 90-degree edge as well as I can, and just holding it there until it cools. How I'm going to do that for the benefit of a camera, I've got no idea. Might smoke up my lens, anything like I could start a fire on this nice wooden table. There's plenty to go wrong here. Alright, let's think safely. Let's move the paper off at least. It's hard to say, of course, if I would have done this any faster without the camera. I would have definitely got distracted by something by now. One thing I'm already really missing is having some music or a podcast on. I did consider putting an episode of Spinnerproof on, but I thought that would be weird, even by my own standards. But, you know, the old content ID waits for no man. Right, glove up. Riveting content from the Spinnerproof YouTube channel. I'll try and do this where you can see it, but just be aware that that might not end well for any of us. So, there's still fuel in the lighter, that's good. I find I do have to get dangerously close. There will be a bit of smoke to begin with as the sort of coating that's on the polycarb sort of just logs its unhappiness at what I'm doing to it. As I have now got the shed door open for ventilation. That is unfortunately also allowing a breeze in. Please tell me this has fuel. It looks like it has fuel. The door's closing and I'm going to suffocate. It's fine. Didn't like breathing anyway. You can, I'm just going to say this now, you can cold bend polycarb if you really have to. I don't want to, but I do know it's an option. If I accidentally change, you know what, I might have accidentally changed the flame size as I was doing this. Which way is the big way? I want big flame. Biggest flame possible. That is on biggest flame possible. Unfortunately, the right hand is the one I really need a glove on. It's the one that I'm going to actually grab the plastic with once it's up to temperature. Which makes it really hard to use the lighter. There we go. Isn't this peaceful? Isn't this peaceful? So how are you? Hope you all are doing well. Hope your robots are functioning fully and your batteries are charging at a decent speed. Now this is the point of danger where the lighter's actually working really well. Which makes me think that it might already be ready. And it's quite a thin piece of material. I did this, and first time I did this was with 3mm ABS, and that took forever. With the polycarb, there's a temptation to think that it must be ready now, and check it. And I can guarantee that if I do that, it won't be ready, and the lighter won't relight again. Although I can see, on this near edge, it is starting to look a little more glassy, a little bubbly, so I'm going to give it a go. Even through the gloves, that is quite hot. There you go. I think, could have been hotter. The bend radius is not as tight as I would like. Cameras, why? Bend radius is not as tight as I would like, but it's going to be functional enough. It's not quite fully cooled yet, but it's pretty much on a 90 degree, which is nice. The other thing that's happened, and this happened on fill as well, is that where I just kind of haphazardly slam my hand on, I have kind of pinched this corner of it. But that's going to be fine. The servo's not going to be trying to get right up to that corner anyway. Let's get these darned gloves off. This is one of those times, by the way, where I would have worn the PPE even if I wasn't making a video. You know what, I'm just going to drop this one because I can now. There we go. So that is a flawlessly bent piece of polycarb. Nothing in the process was harder than it should have been, or annoying to be part of. And I am nothing but proud of myself. Now, there's a temptation to just start gluing servos down. But I do feel like I should check they work first. And this is the painful part of the build, because I do have a spare receiver around. One of the nice things about using servos, by the way, is that you don't need a speed controller. I also have one of those around, but that's because I'm massively over-prepared for robot building right now. So all I need to run this is a receiver and a battery, obviously. I do have a spare unused receiver around, but I want to do the mixing properly for this to be drivable by children, and frankly drivable by me, which would involve, you know, a relatively boring bit of mixing on the transmitter. Fortunately, I do have a receiver that's already bound on a profile that's already mixed. Unfortunately, it's in here. Now, I love the boat, but its flaws have begun to show. I took it out a little while ago, and I don't know how it happened. I think I just hit something in the water, and it flipped over, and there's kind of a little hole here that some water got in. It was fine, it was still running, but out of an abundance of caution, I turned it off anyway, brought it home, and did what I thought would be a really easy job, which is just cutting a little access hole in the top, so that, well, the water wouldn't really drain out of there, but just so it could evaporate out of there. And which would also then give me access to the charging cable to actually recharge it, which would have meant it would be a sort of useful long-term thing. Unfortunately, what I forgot is that this is a terrible plastic that will shatter as soon as you try and do anything to it. So, whilst trying to very carefully cut an access hole with a scalpel, I just made this absolute mess. It's functional, but it's going to be an absolute nightmare to re-waterproof. So I think, as much as I love your boat, I think it's time for you to go. So my plan is to break in. There's a receiver in there that I can take out. There's also the voltage regulator, which I'll take out. I probably could run these servos on full battery voltage. I don't think they'd complain too much. But again, it's not something I want to have one burn out while I'm trying to use this with kids and then have to replace it. It's going to take too long. The session will be gone. Reliability really is key. Just as it was key with the boat, really. The boat had to be electronically reliable so that it wouldn't get stuck out in the middle of a lake. So I think it's time to break into this. I'm tempted to try and leave the base intact. I'm just going to kind of go in through the link. In fact, you know what? I might be able. Just kind of... Oh, there are pieces going everywhere. And I'm probably going to cut myself, but... It hurts me more than it hurts you, boat. Oh, that didn't sound good. So much for keeping the base intact. Don't get this from Robert Cowan, do you? Hey. There we go. Oh, the other thing I need to rescue is the switch, which could prove a little tricky. Let's see if I can get these... Oh, that came off way more easily than I wanted it to. Oh, to be fair, I didn't really glue under it. I just glue along the seam. Yeah, it probably wasn't the best way of doing that. There we go. Okay, this material also, note to self, not a good surface to hot glue to. The HDPE, it holds on quite well. ABS, it holds on quite well. Polycarb, I've not really had any problems with. But apparently this is a bit too slick for it. Okay, so that was stressful. I'll leave the battery in there for now. You know, nice, safe LiPo storage. Oh, I better take... I'm on camera, I'll take it out. Fine. This has been in the hot shed for a while, so I'm a little concerned about how it is. It's nice to sort of get my hands on it and feel that it's not at all puffy. It feels fine. I will get it on the charger later on, just... The main reason I bought that big battery, by the way, was in the hope I could use it in my transmitter. It's about 2 mil too big. Absolutely devastated. If anything, I came up with projects like this just to justify owning it. So, if I pay some moderately close attention to how I had this wired up, because I can't actually remember. So that's on the... Yep, Ellie and Ale. Perfect. Now, the good news is, these wires aren't as excessively long as I remember them being. I think a lot of the sort of wire length, if anything, was coming from the battery itself. So I should be able to get this reasonably compact. Oh, the rain has started. Hope you can hear that. A little bit of calm, relaxing background water. The question is, have I left anything outside that I now need to get in? There we go, that's coming off. Lots of my high quality soldering on display here. I hope everyone's enjoying that. So that's all of the hot glue off with surprising ease, actually. Just bend these metal tabs back a bit. I'll have to do that properly later on. And I can... So that's the weapon servo. We'll leave that out of the way for the time being. Now, this is not something I want to rush. Just check that I've got my ground positive and signal the correct way around. I have. He said with unearned confidence. That's throttle. There we go, that's one. Once one is in place, I find this quite easy. It's just the... If anything, it's the visual stress of trying to look at all the pins and tell them apart. I often find that I will put something on kind of one set of pins over and leave one exposed. Because apparently I'm an old man already. So that should be good to go. That's not a sentence I like saying with that much confidence. So let's get the transmitter on. It's on boat. That seems like the correct thing. I will have to rename that or I'll confuse myself. It's grab and battery. Really should have checked how charged. In fact, you know what? Because I know it's fairly well charged, I will take the battery out of the transmitter. One thing I'd love to be able to implement on all of my builds is a low battery alarm. Broadly speaking, with an Ant, you basically check by just seeing if it feels like it's driving at full speed. And I'm fine doing that myself, but again, if this is something I'm going to hand off to other people, I'm not going to have that feedback of seeing how well it's running. So something that will tell me, just basically give me confirmation that it's not about to blow up in a child's face. I really should just not use lipos, but they're what I have to hand. Maybe that's something I'll change at a later point. .57, good enough. This was at 7.7, which I'm comfortable with. Oh, other thing I can do, because I forgot this on the boat, is I can actually put the power light in. Where did I put the power light? Why do I honestly believe I'm going to find something that... Oh, I found it. Again, this might be too space inefficient to go in the finished thing, but for testing purposes, it's excellent to have around. I will also make sure I give that a tape wrap before it goes in. Remind me, tape wrap the voltage regulator. That's a good start. That's one of them moving, is... Oh yeah, they're both going. I can't quite tell if the mixing is right at the moment, but everything's moving. That's enough for me to move on. If the mixing turns out to be a problem later on, that's something I'm happy to fix off camera. For now, it's all about keeping this build moving. Paddle wheels, be gone. You beautiful bastards. Still so proud of that boat. So proud. Also proud of that stupidly bright LED. Right, I will just unplug that so I don't have to have it out on the desk. Perfect. So I would say that kind of counts as permission to start putting the servos down. But, oh God, this is a bad design. This is a really bad design. Because if I want to be hot swapping batteries in the way I was looking at earlier, that means I need some kind of slot. Oh God, that is so not straight. Haha. It's you won't be able to. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna have to do this for myself, and you won't be able to see it. But check that with the square and see how horribly off it is. Hot glue and foam board can cover a lot of sins, but I don't know if it can cover this one. Again, I think what's happened is where I kind of did that pinch on this corner, I think it has kind of... Let's see if I can do this in a way you can see it. Let's be bold. So I'm going to trust the dimensional accuracy of the edge of this wood. Slide that out of the way. So that should be a good 90 degrees to here. No, it's not terrible. It's something that you can kind of visually see. I think the eye can be quite... So that's where it should be. That's where it is. And is that even what it's not really what I was trying to check, though, is it? It's fine. Who cares? I care deeply, but who cares? So yeah, if I want a slot in the back of this, that's going to mean drilling corners. It's going to mean getting a coping saw out. It's going to mean getting the coping saw through there. It's a lot of processes that I find, just frankly find tricky, you know? Things that I don't necessarily want to be futzing about doing on camera. So I wonder... The original plan, as I was thinking, was for servos to be there, and the battery wherever I haphazardly dumped it, which of course was into the LiPo bag, of course. I was hoping that would kind of just ride in between, which is a really nice place for it. Really neat, gives lots of room up front for all the sort of receiver and that. But... could it come in along the side, maybe? It's hard to know how to show this. Maybe it could come in there instead, sit on top of one servo, with a little bit of internal mounting just to hold it there. Then all I'd have to do is cut in, which would be nice. That would probably move it a bit in like that, but... Having to think things through sucks. Don't like it. Don't want to do it. Should probably turn that off, because that's just wasting battery. See, my normal approach... I don't tend to design things, I'll be honest. My normal approach is make it and sort it out. So that should be my approach here. You know, this, if anything, is going to be more haphazard. At least it should be in principle. And yet I'm now fighting back against that. I tried to do this during the Kylo build. And I had Sam here to remind me that we just needed to get it done. It's not like I've invested much effort into what I've done so far. So if this version turns out bad... I mean, I'm 42 minutes into recording and I didn't even start then. This is half an hour of human energy has gone into getting this far. It's not something I'd be too averse to doing again if I had to. So on that basis, I should probably just get on with it. And if I scrap it, that's fine. I finish it as a prototype and then remake it better. It's the attitude I should have. Is it the attitude that I'm capable of having right now? I'm going to get the hot glue gun on while I think about it, because that will just be a time sink waiting for that. Get out the extension cord. Hashtag not sponsored. Remember, when setting up an extension cord, always make sure that the lead doesn't quite touch the floor to maximise your chances of falling. Okay, that's more like it. He says, nearly falling over it anyway. I found myself, for some reason, having a lot of conversations recently about hot gluing robots, because obviously it is not the right way to do things. I don't think that's contentious in any way. But so far, it hasn't actually bitten me on anything. So far, I've had nothing but good experiences with robots where things are hot glued together. So, fill is mostly super glue reinforced with hot glue. So my thinking on that is, and there's no real basis of knowledge or evidence behind this, my thinking was that the super glue is a strong bond, but a fairly brittle bond. I don't know how true that is, but that was sort of my sense of how it was. So I figured that if I started off with that as kind of a first layer, I could then use hot glue to kind of reinforce it, meaning that if it did fail, it wouldn't be a catastrophic failure. There'd still be something there with a little flex and a little give as that backup. But it's not been in any fights where I could really learn any different. The other times I've used hot glue have always been hot gluing stuff to foam board, and the foam board has failed first. So it's hard to know if my confidence in the material is well earned or not. But again, for this, it's something that at the very least will be easily repaired. Which is totally contrary to what I was saying earlier about, making sure it's robust in the first place. But again, the fact it's got a little bit of give, I think makes it the better choice. What I am going to do, however, this is a lesson I've learned the hard way. Obviously, I want to glue these servos down via this face. I want the hot glue to be the weak point, not the sticker. So I'm going to make sure I take the stickers off first. I'm also going to... There we go, that'll make life easier. Scalpel time! I don't like how I just copied William Osmond there. I am very sorry. Come on. If I stab myself now, at least there's video of it. Oh, ew. Ew, that is... So I think... I'm now worried that where these servos have been sat in a shed that's been getting very hot, I think some of the lubricant that's in the gearbox might have been leaking out. I don't have anything to wipe that up with either. That's frustrating. Do I? Note to self. Add a roll of blue roll to the shed. No, well, that's just going to be... I can't leave that greasy because I'm about to try and glue to it, aren't I? This could work. Not really what it's for, but... a bit of this weird foamy stuff might do the job. If it's not removing it, it's at least spreading it round into a thin and even layer to maximise the impact it has on the strength of the glue's bond. It's making me wonder if, this isn't a step I would usually take, but maybe I should be thinking about scuffing up this surface with a bit of sandpaper, just to try and help the bond, One thing I must remember to do, because I don't always remember this either, In fact, the front edge of, the back edge of the wedge of, I can't remember what I called it now. Antweight, hello there. I've forgotten what name I gave it. That's terrible. A bold one, that's it. One of the things I did on the rear side of the wedge is that I did hot glue the mounts to it without first removing the covering that's on the polycarb, which means that that bond is only as strong as the bond of that covering. Now, a lot of people would redo that glue joint. Not a lot of people. I'm exceptionally lazy. And if anything, I think it would be quite funny to see it fail in battle. That one's okay. One issue with these SG90 servos, they are dirt cheap, and you can tell. So I think there's every chance that the other one was just a bad one. Now, a lot of people wouldn't use it based on having realised that, but I'm not a lot of people. There we go. I am definitely a little greasy on the fingers now, so that's a concern. I'll give them the best clean-up I can. I guess the next thing I should do is avoid repeating the mistake I was just talking about by... Oh, well, I've really muddled that corner. Oh, well. Oh, there wasn't even a covering on the other side, so that smoke was just... Oh, no, there is a covering on there. I'll get that off as well. It's the clear side, so it's easy to forget. Doesn't look as bad once you get the covering off, although I have just realised this is now going to make it much harder for the camera to see this, so... You're welcome. Really hope the top of the picture is where I think the top of the picture is. A little. I'll check it. Oh! Update. I'm on 82%. Okay. That's a lot better than I was expecting. I've also just changed... Ah, no! No! I appear to be changing settings everywhere. This is not good. It's, just for that side? Is that now overexposed? It's just adjust for the middle. It's fine. Then when I move out of the light, it's fine, probably. Just leave it. It's all good. So, I'm going to quickly hit this. This is an edge that I cut previously. I'm going to quickly hit that with a file, just because it's going to become increasingly difficult to do that as I go on. And again, sharp edges and young fingers, no bueno. When filing, always try to file over your sensitive electronics so that the dust can protect them. One of the things I've been really keen to do with this whole thing, because obviously there is a certain amount of meta thinking as I do this, is I don't at any point want to give the impression that I'm saying this is something anyone should do. So I hope that's coming across. So, because something I have been thinking of doing for a while, and I guess the boat video and this are both kind of a test of this, is some kind of tutorial on making just a really simple servo-based amp. Because I always used to think that the servo-based amp wasn't a useful step for a new builder. I kind of felt like, what are you learning from doing it realistically? You're learning how to glue some servos down, and that's about it. That's the way I used to think about it, whereas to me it seemed sensible that if you're getting over the hump of starting to build, you might as well learn how to solder and learn how to set things up with an ESC and all of that. And I think what I've realised over the course of doing a couple of solo builds is that actually your first build isn't about learning as much as you can. Your first build is about minimising the fear you feel as you build it. So I actually think now, the servo-based approach is probably a good way for someone to start. It's a chance to work with cheap components that you're not worried about scrapping. And it's a chance to work with the minimal skills. If you're having to learn to solder and having to learn what all the different wires on the ESC do and learn about polarity of motors, that's actually quite a lot on top of learning how the remote control setup works, learning how to plug things into a receiver correctly. Sounds simple for a lot of people. Used to terrify me. I was always checking with Sam that I'd done it right in case I was going to scrap the part. There's then even just getting over the hump of working out how to build things, working out what materials to use. There are a lot of unknowns. So actually, if you can remove a few of them, I think you're more likely to just get that first build done. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't even have to fight, but just get it done. I think going through that process of actually making something is where you start working out what ideas you really have in your head and kind of working out what opinions you hold about building. I think it's hard to know what you want until you've tried to have it. Ramble over. So let's see how far back I can get this. Okay, so already I'm seeing that's not a completely level surface there because of the bend. That's going to be a problem. What I might do just quickly, I might just snip off this backside. I'm glad that I've got some wire clearance. I didn't really want to have the wires coming straight forwards. It's nice that I can have them going back and then maybe sort of loop them round together. There could be a tiny bit of interferencey stuff from that, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. So if I can get that kind of square to the edge, just take this off, it will be able to go a little further back. And yeah, that should be good. It'd be nice to be working with some markings, really, just to make sure I get them square. I don't have any kind of permanent marker. I have the red whiteboard marker I was using earlier, but I know as soon as I start trying to move things around, that's just going to go. This is maybe a better angle, by the way, to see the issue with the top. So it kind of twisted round. I don't think there's anything I can really do about that. Still not sure that the angle I was trying to measure earlier was the right angle to show that off, but there we are. Hopefully it won't matter. I think if I did another one of these, I might forego the heat bending. Or at least, actually, no, I think if I was doing it in a more comfortable setup where I wasn't worrying about a camera, that would probably have gone well enough. The one on film wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. And that was over a sort of wider distance as well. So I think I know I'm capable of a better bend than that, so maybe that shouldn't be a reason to not do it the same way next time. I wonder if I have any sandpaper to hand. I know I have sandpaper, but do I have it to hand? Yes, I do. So if that's going to go like that, not like that, obviously not like that, like that. Let's give this underside a quick... This is very coarse sandpaper. This is what I was using to try and get some sort of curved parts and things on Hello There that didn't really work out. So I bought it mostly for its material removing capabilities rather than its sort of ability to give a nice finish. I should do the same on the polycarb, but I'm not going to. Because I think it will look bad from underneath. Why I'm worrying about that, even I don't know, but I am. So what I've learned from checking my battery is that this is no longer a race against time in that respect. That's also good to know future, because actually I wanted to know how long this could record for a different thing, a secret thing, a fun thing. This is no longer a race against time in terms of how long my camera will last. This is now a race against your attention. And I suppose a race against my SD card. I really hope that my phone will give me some kind of warning about that being about to go. At least I'll be able to wrap things up. Wow, this is harder to cut than normal. Normally I just snip these off and it's easy. What's happening? Maybe these tabs are going to stay. Maybe that's just going to have to be the way it is. Okay, I've managed to get an in there. There we go. Just little bites. Tiny little bites. That's what it needed. Not going to be the cleanest cut. That's fine. Come on. It's also getting pretty warm in here. Probably because my laptop's there just idling. Come on. Boom. And the master of the universe. Master of my universe. that'll then go that side. Boy, I hope I don't get these the wrong way around. It's the kind of thing I'd do. That looks, don't know how well you can see, that looks fairly well scuffed up, same as the other one. Really should have a marking to do this with. Oh, I got still just snip that off as well. Okay, and this one's just easy for some reason. So again, the variable quality of these cheap servos. Never quite know what you're up against. Well, that's gone somewhere and it's never coming back. So we go boom. We go. We give up. We try again. So we go boom boom. We put some wheels on and we go zoom. That's how this all works. So first thing, cheeky little tip, cable management. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to quickly hot glue the... That's some very melted hot glue. So I'm just going to quickly glue the wire to the back, just to make sure it keeps that nice tight curve and stays out of the way. Now I'm going to stand here for a while that cools down. So, how you doing? Come on. Oh, that is really liquid. In fact, I might even try and smear some over the top. There we go. Oh, that's a pro strategy right there. I hadn't even thought of that before. See, I'm innovating as I go. Okay, so the next one. Nice little blob of hot glue. I should point out there are limits to how I would use hot glue. Yeah, I think if I were using hot glue to like hold on a spinning weapon, or even something like a flail weapon, I think at that point I would be reevaluating my life choices. For getting something, even for keeping something on a servo, I'd rather be, quickly drilling and bolting that. Except I am going to be attaching something to a servo later, and now I'm going to have to drill and bolt it, or else I'm going to look like a hypocrite. Although I am okay with looking like a hypocrite. Let's face it, it wouldn't be the first time. Right. This is my last chance to mark this out properly. Is this even all square enough to mark out? That's the question. Next question is, where do I put the square? Always the question, it seems. Boy, this is even ramblier than I expected. So I can square it off that way, and that does leave a little gap, but that's fine, because I think that's then also more square with the front. So registering, if I'm gonna do it, registering against that edge is probably my best bet. Let's check how it goes against here, but I feel like probably not well is the answer. About the same, to be fair, about the same. I'm more comfortable just out of principle, I'm happier doing it on the machine side. So how far back can this go? So if I went about there, so I have to go a little further back because I know that this side is slightly more, the curve inside is more of an issue, so I need to give that a little more clearance. So if I marked across there, scalpel marking, why not? Once again, if I cut myself, at least that's content. So am I absolutely happy with how it's positioned? No, never. Oh no, my finger! Got no idea what that voice was. That was my that was my wood going in the wood chipper voice for some reason. Oh no, my leg! Don't know where it comes from, but apparently in times of great joy, that's where my mind goes. I must be subconsciously referencing something there, surely. Oh, that does not look square. It does not look at all. I know you won't be able to see it, maybe it'd be a bit easier to see against. Nope. Well, there's a line, and it doesn't look right. Let's just check it. Again, it's tricky because the fold line isn't something that I can really rely on, nor is this cut line at the front. I'm going to go with the cut line at the front just as my best option. So that's 55. Yeah, that's fairly square. If I just block that part out, it does look okay, to be fair. See, this is where I get bogged down building stuff like this. It's good enough. Good enough for them damn kids. I feel the need to point out that is definitely a joke. I put way too much of my life into this job for that to be true. So now, again, you can't really see this. You know, I'm going to try. I'll try and give you something you can see at least. That's what a competent video maker would do. A competent video maker would be able to find the red pen he just used as well. So maybe we should just give up now. Is it under the paddle wheels? Is it under the transmitter? Where could it be? Trying to have my laptop in here, not the best plan. Taking up a lot of space. Valuable storage space. As is the can of Pringles and the box of chocolate fingers that are here in case I get peckish. Because, you know, I'm honest about who I am. The pen is not here. I have other coloured pens. Let's not worry about it. But if you stole my pen, help me God, you will suffer. Yeah, I'm 30 years old and have a pencil case. What of it? I'm organised. So I'll just kind of... So that's the rough line we're working with. Oh. Yeah, that's so much better. That's the rough line we're working with, though. Maybe this will be better. There we go. So that's the... Why does that look like some weird, blood test gone wrong? I expect to just put this under a microscope. Yes, definitely herpes. Give up on the video side of this. This is now an audio-only podcast. We'll just cover you up. Oh. The cat's acting suspiciously, eating grass. Just let him know I'm here. Let him know I can see what he's doing. Hey, Benson. What you doing? Don't lick your lips at me. He doesn't respect me. Maybe he'll respect me once I've got motors in. Yeah. So the idea is this side of the servo is going to line up to the line. The outside goes to the outside, and we just hope that it will clearance. Let's just say it's enough clearance and hope that makes it true. Oh, God, no! And that's fine, I can... The servo horn just comes off. I was going to say, if I do this now, I won't be able to cut a battery slot because the servo horn... It would have rotated around as fine. It's been a long week. That's still got a little grip on there. So let's glue up the motor. Give that a good little spread around. Get it into those little scratches. Then hope it doesn't set before I get this down. Set a little bit of squeeze out. That's always a good sign to me. So we're looking reasonably square, which is always a bonus. Unfortunately, one of the things I find is that with motor mounting, whether that's servos or proper N20s or whatever, you just can't tell how square it is until you get a wheel on, and by then it tends to be too late. That's the one nice thing about what we've done on the Beetles in terms of face mounting the motors. We're cutting a hole through a piece of material and then screwing or bolting through a faceplate into that material. You know it's going to be, within reason, perfectly square. Everything else from there, all bets are off, but there's a sort of limit to how wrong you can get it, basically. Which is how I like to design. I like to design around my own inability to be precise rather than try to be more precise than I know I can be. I guess that's a lot of the conversation we were having in an episode recently. Episode 77, I want to say. Because, I'm Spinnerproof's biggest fan. That, by the way, I still think the best conversation we've had in the podcast. I know a lot of people might not have got there because it wasn't a very roboty episode. But I think it's really good to be talking about, I don't want to say the human side, because that makes it sound like I'm about to go on a sort of ABC Season 2 style 20-minute chat about a roboteer's background and life. But I think there's a lot to be said about the design of a robot and the idea behind it and the maintaining it and all of that. All of that is really worthy discussion, but I think the team dynamics that actually allow that to happen could potentially be the most interesting part of this whole sport. How do people form effective teams? People always talk about Bike Force being successful because the whole team is great together. They work in the pits and all of that. And obviously on TV you're always going to talk about a team captain and not much else, but I think it's always worth exploring. And even on a micro scale of largely unsuccessful roboteers like Sam, I obviously am successful, it's even more worth talking about because I guess we've got a lot more sort of distance left to run on it, if that makes sense. I am quite happy with that. I do think this is maybe a little eek, and this is actually also maybe a little... It's okay, I'll just drive diagonally, that's fine. I would love to be in a position, mentally more than anything, to shorten these servo wires, but unfortunately I have a rather odd approach to soldering where I use a sort of long clamp, the metal bar of it, I use that to clamp stuff to in a line and then solder. That's what's currently holding my camera, so that's kind of off the table. So I'm happy with that. So next up, I guess, I'm still not comfortable with this idea. I'm really not certain about this way of doing things, but it will allow me to basically do what I've done with other stuff and make a fully sealed robot that I can still maintain, and that's a good thing. So a slot here, sort of zoop and down, for the battery to slide into would be beautiful. I'd probably do it a little deeper, and then maybe do something over here just for a bit more strength, because then there can be a sort of internal mounting for it as well. Probably want to be that way up, Although it would still... I'm not sure how well this idea can work, because there's all this length here in the wire. I'd need to be able to pull it right out, get a grip on this from the inside. I need to be able to pull all of this out, put in, and then push back in without it all going weird on me. So I don't know if this idea can even work. Oh, this is not a good time to be trying to innovate. It's not a good place to put a battery next to a hot glue gun either. Probably turn that off for a minute. Speed building, featuring half an hour of standing around thinking about stuff. I could just leave the charging port out. And that would at least, so I could have the battery in sort of secured, and I can just leave a little, I can still do a slot, some kind of access point, have the battery kind of here with the power going off, say that way, just hot glue that in place, and have it so that I can get some tweezers and pull this cable out. That would allow me to recharge. The problem is my battery charger takes a good, I haven't actually measured it, it's a cheapo charger, it's about 1 amp, and it takes a while to charge one of these batteries. So I would love to be able to actually swap batteries. It's whether that's achievable. What I'll do is, right, I will attempt the hot switchable battery here, as I kind of discussed, but I will do it with the cables coming this way, and the main power distribution sort of starting over here. Switch can go on this side somewhere. Maybe. If it works and lets me switch, fantastic. If not, it will still let me charge. I think that's probably the more pragmatic way of doing this. Although it does mean, my other concern is obviously if I'm going to have a servo in here somewhere, I don't want the wiring going anywhere in its path. But that's a problem I've solved before. That's not so bad. I think that with some good internal mounting-y things, that can work. Man, this is stressful. I'm not having a nice time right now. Of course, the other thing that's going to be tricky is that I don't have most of my clamps to do this cutting with. Right, let me get the proper sorry tabley thing in here. We'll see how we can hook this all together. Now, of course, this also means a little shifteroo in the filming setup, which is dangerous. Oh, my glue gun's nearly out of glue. I've got to get a new stick in there. I hate doing that. Why do I build robots? I just don't... Sometimes I don't understand myself. I'd love to know if I usually have this level of, like, existential crisis when building. Right, so you can zoom out fully. Hello. All of this can just move over here. Because remember, if it's not in shot, it doesn't... Oh, it's in shot. Okay. If it's not, it's still in shot. If it's mostly out of shot, it doesn't exist. Right. Broken soaring table thing. That doesn't quite sit flat. There we go, that gives me some room to saw stuff. Although, what if? Magnificent! So what I want... This is going to be so awkward. What have I done to myself? So what I want is kind of a cut and a cut. And then a cut down that I might just have to snap that, to be honest. That can work. Clamp me! So again, I do have the G-clamps. They're fine. They're fiddly. And fiddly jobs become jobs that I just begrudge having to do. So there might be some anger and annoyance during this process, for which I do apologise in advance. But I'd just like you to know it's completely your fault for being here. So you deal with that guilt however you want. You know, I can't tell you how to cope with that. Wires everywhere, annoying, go away. Hot glue strands everywhere. bear in mind, I've built or been part of building what? So Split Decision, hello there, Kylo, if you really count Kylo, Tropical Storm Phil, Antweight, hello there, like half of WoW Bagger, Reginald, the original Phil, like 8 robots, plus some other stuff. I should be competent by now, and I'm just, I'm not demonstrating that competence very well. Normally this would be a job for the big boy hacksaw, but I think that today I will swap that over for the convenience and bluntness of junior hacksaw. You just go in there and I'll deal with you later. Wait, when I said this was a broken thing, this is what I meant, the whole wobbliness. Someone has clearly tried to use this as a ladder at some point, thinking they were, you know, a little less substantial, shall we say, than they were. I have so many scraps of plastic in different thicknesses that I could definitely get this level. Doesn't mean I'm going to. So, eyeballing it. There. Seems good. Let's go. I probably hold a saw in a weird way and you're going to judge me. It's fine. I can't stop you. Oh, wow. There's already so much wobble. Again, I'm glad I did this with the servos already in place so that all of the sort of sharp dusts and shards coming off of this can go directly into their gearbox, which is now less sealed than it was because I removed those stickers. I didn't need to remove them on both sides, but I did. So let's see. Hi! Oh, I'll go a little deeper. Now, I think we've all realised by now that the end product here is probably going to suck, but that's okay. Because I didn't design it. If I designed this and it sucked, I'd feel bad. But because I've just made it, it kind of feels more acceptable for it to suck. There you go, that seems like... I don't know if I'm going to do the sort of foam board sides outboard or inboard. I feel like I'm going to have to do them inboard. So I want to make sure there's plenty of clearance there. And do this the minimum amount so that I don't spend forever screwing it back. For that beautiful, beautiful clean cut. No bits hanging on the backside whatsoever. In a beautifully, you know, fileable position. I didn't think this through. Am I talking about the cut or the whole project? You decide. A little bit of scalpel cleanup, which I'm definitely doing off camera because it's the most dangerous thing I've done so far. Come on. Might be able to slip a file through there, you know. Let's try it. I love how stuff like files are the only tools I've actually been putting away. Everything else is just in a massive and increasingly useless pile. Being very gentle here, just trying to make sure I don't mar the surface too much, because that will annoy me. There we go. I can just get into that once it's cut. Oh. Battery check, 72%. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, oh, oh. Joe Brown has sent me a photo. This is going to be something very exciting that I'm not going to let you see. There you go, Joe. If you're not watching this, you can get my not live reaction. Come on, Facebook. You can do it. Holy hell, they are beautiful. Oh, yes. Oh, I am disgustingly happy with that. How long ago did he send that? 20 minutes. Sorry, Joe. Leave you hanging like that. I appreciate you working hard for me, and I am being a very unhelpful client. Oh, that's so good. Ah, the white even kind of looks right colour-wise. Oh, yes. Oh, that's given me a second robot building win, that has. That's... Oh, Joe Brown, what a guy. What a guy. Except I can't send him money now because my phone... It's fine. It's all fine. So, second cut. Yes. Cutting things. Good. So, again, eyeballing it, height of a battery plus a bit. You know what? No, I can't just cut straight down because I do need some structure up here. See if I can try using that pen. Oh, I also put that down somewhere, I don't know where. Now we're onto a brown pen, which also may or may not work. Didn't work. You're better off just biting a mark into the plastic at this rate. Oh, there's the blue. Nice. So again, rough and ready measurements. Okay, that also didn't write. I guess trying to write straight on the polycarb, not really the smartest move. So you know what time it is. It's time for me to wave a scalpel near a battery. Safety first, kids. Safety first. I'm so glad that doesn't show up well on camera. That was a genuine travesty. I should not be allowed to go near sharp things. So, how best to clamp this to follow that totally straight? I don't know if you... It's just not good. It's just not good. Oh, I can just... Oh, hey! That's actually really convenient. I'm a little bit happier about this cut now. Man, G-clamps are the worst to work with. I don't know, maybe I'm the worst to work with. But out of the clamps, you know. Oh man, I can't stop looking around at my laptop and looking at this photo from Joe. This is my first experience of outsourcing a robot part, and I could not be happier. In fact, I might have to take a minute just to quickly send Sam a photo of that. It's not for a project we're doing together, it's purely for me, but even he will be excited by the outsourcing at this point. It's funny, a couple of years ago now, I think it was, I was looking at getting into building, and I had an idea of what I thought that entailed, and I thought, you know, I should really learn some form of CAD. And obviously, learning CAD itself, with the calibre of computer that I tend to own, not really an option. But I thought, you know what, if I can learn to do some 2D design, I can use that to outsource things for laser cutting, and that might be good enough. And I think, obviously now I know there are other options than laser cutting. It was a bit misguided of me to think that laser cutting would be all that useful, but I ran with it anyway. And I never did design anything to be cut on it, but I did like almost end up with a career in graphic design out of it by accident. And this is the first time I've actually designed a part that has gone and been laser cut. Right. I could cut this down. I could... Oh no, I can't bend it in. Because I need the wiring to go that way. Robots, man. Robots. I'm going to try bending it in. I'm going to try bending it inwards. Because that'll make a bit of mounting for it as well, and that'll be nice. And maybe there is a way to do the wire routing that still allows me to pull the whole thing out. If not, I'll just use the charging method. That's frankly better than anything else I've done in Antweight in terms of charging and battery management. It's still a step forward. Oh, this is very squeaky bum, bending this. Do not like it. I want to do this so the camera can see, but I also don't want to mess it up. So those are unfortunately conflicting wants at the moment. Although actually, maybe doing it on a surface is the way forward. I'm told you can cold bend polycarb. I've not actually tried it. And I'm not, as much as I would love to do this well, I'm not comfortable trying to heat bend this with the servo in place. That seems like a silly risk. Although this is also quite risky, frankly. I could, let's get this a bit more centered for you. I could do a diagonal cut and a diagonal cut and kind of hone this in with the junior hacksaw. I do not want to be getting into, you know, messing around with a coping saw right now. That's not something I can emotionally handle. Oh, this is, I wonder if the hard part with bending this is that this bit also wants to bend. Even when I'm just kind of pushing down here, it's kind of trying to go because the stress just travels along. Let's see if clamping this down helps any. If nothing else, it will give me a bit of freedom to move my hands around a bit more. Again, camera angle's crap, I know it, but this has to be done decently, so the result comes first. Ow, the result might be a broken thumb at this rate. I'm not a strong man. I am, however, slightly stubborn. Sometimes those two things are interchangeable. I mean, it's going. Again, one of those things I was saying earlier about the bending of plastic is you need to overbend. So I'm getting this right down to the 90 degrees. And it's popping back to probably more like 60. So I've gone as far as I can like this. Thankfully, now there's some stress in the material. I'm hoping that it will be a bit easier to bend. Hoping. So let's see if I just give it a little pinch. Like, oh, that does not feel... Yep, down on the surface we go. I might even clamp down again, you know? First time, by the way, in the time I've been using this workbench, that the holes have actually become useful. It's letting me get my finger down in there. Yeah. Is this silly? I don't know, but I'm going to try it. I've always said my favourite part of the robot building problem... my favourite part of the robot building process is the problem solving. This is a problem to solve, so I should, by rights, be excited right now. This is definitely a novel approach. That's not going to work, surely that's not going to work. I have to do it that way, which isn't that. It's not going to... I tried, you can't say I didn't. You know what, if it snaps, I was going to have to saw it off anyway, so... Oh, hello, that... Yeah! Is that going to try... I'm going to leave that there for a second, just in case it tries to bend back on me. I'm going to see if Joe's responded. I'm going to have a little drink of water. Because hydration is key, you know. I'm going to cover up whatever this is on the floor that you've already been staring at, I'm sure. Oh, I'm ready to go. Oh, just as I say that, he starts typing a message. I still don't think this is the right approach, but I do think it's the approach I'm going to run with because it's a solution I have now. And that, at this moment, trumps a solution I might have in future that will require, you know, more work. I'll be so glad to put this thing away in a second. So yeah, that hasn't bent back on me. I think the hard thing, as I say, will be doing the sort of electrical setup so that I can pull it out all the way. Because obviously it doesn't just need to come out as far as here for me to put it. I then need to be able to get behind and push this in securely to the other side of the JST. That's going to be the tricky part. And all the play I have, really, is what you see in the positive line. So if I have the switch... This would be a terrible place for a switch, might be where it ends up. If I had the switch here... If you like... So if I have the switch, say, there... Yeah, this can come all the way out if it's there. That would probably be more like there. Maybe this can work, maybe, but they're not very flexible wires, so it'd be the... I just don't know if this is going to work out. But if nothing else, I'll have the ability to charge, so I think we'll have to go with it. I'm going to need to quickly drill. Do I drill for the switch now, or do I save that for later? There's so much stuff still left to think about on this. This isn't actually as close to done as I would like it to be, which is frustrating. This is going to be like a 3 or 4 hour build, I think. Ha! Sucks to be you! Let's get this wired up. I think that should be the next big step, just to see how everything's going to come together. Don't really know what way round these should be. Don't recall how I had them on the boat. Actually, no, before I wire it up, you know what I should do? I should make some wheels, shouldn't I? Because this is the fun bit. If you're using N20s, wheels are easy. If you're using random servos like this, you kind of got to make your own. And I've been thinking long and hard, more than I've thought about anything else, about how I'm going to do that. And what I have, and this is Felix Townsend inspired, full credit to him, I have an offcut of a yoga mat that was broken. And I've got a couple of fairly flat areas that I can cut some circles out of. How I'm going to do that, I'm not entirely sure. I'm thinking... I'm thinking, that's probably bold of me. I have a few circular things that I can use as templates. The servos are quite slow, so the bigger I go with the wheel, the faster it will be. So I've got the outer and the inner of this tape that I could potentially use. I have, if I'm willing to take them apart, bottle tops that are on the paddles. What else do I have? I guess I've got the outer of this solder. If I want to go a little bigger. Just need to find... I mean, if I wanted to go mad, go full Pringles lid size, but no. It's a question of seeing what looks reasonable on the design, I suppose. So, for example, the solder I think is too much. If you imagine that being centred there, that's a lot. That's more than it needs to be. If I went with the tape, the inner I don't think would quite... Or would it? The inner might do it, but the outer would potentially be even better just from a speed point of view. Although actually they're not that... No, I'm going, the solder, that's crazy big. They're pretty much the same size. Tempted by the inner of that tape, you know, although I think that might actually be smaller. It's actually smaller than the usual BBB wheels. I've been telling myself I want something larger, but do I? I've got another milk bottle top around. Why would I? That's not the kind of thing I just keep sitting around. What am I talking about? The other challenge, of course, would be finding the middle of them properly. What I should have is a pair of compasses like a normal person would have, but here I am not having that. Oh, I wonder. Ah, yes, let's go full circle. Full circle. There had to be a cameo somehow, didn't there? Now, the outside of these is kind of a bit flappy, but the inside is fairly well set. I've got a centre mark that I can use, which is really good. I think that might be the one. In fact, I'm almost tempted to just take them off and use them on servos, but that could be the right size. Let's get rid of you. Yeah, that's a great size. Yeah, I'm going with that. I'm going with that. I haven't really thought about how to mark or cut this, so let's just try some things out, shall we? Oh boy, wish I hadn't lost half those markers already. The pink was not an intentional choice, by the way. That's just what happened to be available, and I'm grateful for it, you know? Seriously, where did I put these pens? I'm starting to annoy myself now. God knows how you must be feeling. It's always fun to imagine the retention graph of something as you make it. And I am vividly imagining a very low line by now. Oh, there's the blue again. That's nice. Trusty blue. There we go. So I need to remember when I'm cutting this that really I'm working with the inside of this mark. Wow, writing on the... I mean, I probably could use that. Probably could use that. The other option, of course, would just be to cut straight around this, but no, that's probably a bit risky. So that's one fairly flat area. Where's another fairly... Oh, the other corner, funnily enough. Should have known the corners would be the really flat bits. Joe has just suggested a thing I could do to make my design better that would take more than 20 seconds work. He doesn't know me. Right, let's try and cut these then. So, scissors or scalpel? You decide. It's going to be scissors. Scalpel, totally an option, but... I mean, scalpel is probably the right option, let's be honest. But that would involve a lot of setup that I just can't put myself through right now. Let's give this a quick trim out so I'm not having to wave the whole thing around. Cuts quite nicely as well, so actually I feel vindicated already in my choice of tool. Now the plan is not to try and cut a curve, I'm just going to cut... Maybe I should try and cut a curve. I was going to say I'll try and cut straight lines until it's done, but it cuts so nicely that maybe I can do a continuous curve. It cuts really nice. Oh man, this is rather satisfying. And again, this is just a way of giving it the ability to move. I'm not looking for a lot of grip. It's not ever got to stand up to spinners or anything. Well, I suppose I do wonder if, you know, maybe this is a viable way of making Antweight wheels. It's not the cleanest cut, but it's... I think it's round enough for what I'm doing. I think if I were doing this for another build, I'd probably want to be... I mean, I don't know if a hole saw would be appropriate or whatever. I'd probably want to be doing something a little more dimensionally accurate. But, as is, I'm happy. I wonder if a laser cutter can cut yoga mats. Hey, Joe! That would be fun, though. Especially if you could then engrave on them as well, that'd be even better. So number 2, let's do this. Remember trying to cut to the inside line, or else I'm going to end up with vastly different shaped and sized wheels. I'm going to end up with different shaped wheels no matter what. That's just a talent thing though. It's got a little awry. Let's just pull it back in. What's interesting when you're doing this is that where you think you're cutting is not where you're cutting. To me, it looks like the cut is happening here. It's actually happening back here. So I'm almost following the line ahead, not the line I have now, and kind of hoping that they prove to be the same thing, you know? It's interesting as well to be sort of looking at the clock and seeing that I've been going for about 1:40, because I did come into this with no idea of how quickly I could build something. In my head, I've always thought a 1-hour build was possible. And maybe it is for a lot of people, you know. Maybe if I were just doing this and not thinking about filming it, maybe it would have got done a lot quicker, but wow, that's not as good as the first one. But see, I generally think a 1-hour build is possible, but that could just be hubris on my part. It's hard to know if that's actually based on anything other than, an hour is a long time, right? I think I'm happy with those. So what I want to do now, I haven't really thought about how to do this. I'm going to use the hello there pulleys to try and somehow mark the middle. So I think they're based on a 4mm bit. Oh, look what I've just found. Permanent marker. Brilliant. Was this based on a 4mm bit, or was it a larger arbor than that? Because if it is, I don't have anything bigger than a 4mm bit. I'm an insect weight builder. I'm an insect weight builder. I don't have bits bigger than 4. That's bigger than 4. Maybe there's something laying around the shed that's not mine that I can use. Nope, larger, okay. Seven? Yeah, pretty much a 7. So I'll just use this to kind of hand drill my way through, because I feel like actual power drill would probably be overkill. Wow. That does not look very central. I mean, actually, you know what? That's not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad. So same again, but this time using my finger as the back, because that lets me control the pressure a little better. You can go back where you belong, the arena floor. Not really, it went back on the robot. You know what, let's have a proper cameo, you know? Been here a while, you deserve to see the greatest speedway ever made. There we go. Still looking broken. But hey, the weapon's actually hooked up properly, so that's something. It's not always the case. So, wheels. Homemade and beautiful. I'd love to know how Felix actually makes his. I don't know. I mean, obviously he has, you know, useful machinery and talent. Both of those probably playing their part, I assume. Although I think he uses So this is an actual yoga mat. I think he's using something slightly more solid than the yoga mat, more like kind of this playmat material, which is a lot more solid, although not equally lightweight, but still very lightweight. Which I imagine is I imagine if anything's going to be machinable in the sort of foam, I guess in terms of foam, I guess it would be that stuff. And hey, it's Felix; he can basically do anything except beat a two-wheel drive wedge. But apparently, that's hard. Harder than beating our four-wheel drive wedge, at least. Everyone seems to manage that. Right, where was I? Wheels are made. So what do I need now? Servo horns. Get out of there. I'd love to have the ridged surface facing in, but I feel like that's not going to be as good a gluing surface as the smooth one is. Obviously, normally ridged would be better than smooth, but smooth isn't really smooth at all. Oh god, I hope the glue... Be right back. I hope the glue doesn't start melting this stuff, because it can do that with foam board. Or certainly the metal end of the glue gun can do that with foam board. That would involve plugging the glue gun back in, wouldn't it? I think, should we do a table swap? Let's do a table swap. See, hot swapping tables, that's the real trick. Forget batteries. Easy. I won't do this with my transmitter on there. That would be silly. This is the kind of thing that would usually be cut from a video. Not in my house. I've trapped myself in a bit of a corner. Everything's falling on the floor. Some of it possibly important. Oh, it's only the sandpaper, that's the word. Now it's more than sandpaper. Don't know how the sort of like people that do this properly actually do it. I would not have the patience to set up camera shots repeatedly. Barely have the patience to make the bloody robot in the first place, so... Zoom! There we go. Wasn't that fun? So, glue gun goes on. New glue stick gets prepared because I'm going to need it. Snips go away because hopefully I won't need them again. Definitely need them again. Just telling Joe that I can't pay him right now because I'm this, you know. Totally good. Totally good reason to delay paying someone. This. I can't remember what I was doing. Yes, wheels. That means servo horns. There's one. Others will be in the bags that the servos came out of. Wherever they are. Maybe not. An organised workspace is key. That's not the bits I wanted, but it's the right sort of area. Bind plug, not what I'm looking for, but useful. We'll keep it out. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to open up a new servo pack. Electronics box. Receiver. SG90, perfect. Half-finished Antweight that I'll probably never finish. You get in the box and you stay in the box where you belong. Definitely won't regret this when I come to use this servo and find that there's none of the hardware with it. Oh well. We don't make good decisions, we make fast decisions. So, first things first. Let's see what servo horns we have available. So I think this is the ideal style of servo horn because it does... Most servo horns you get if you glue onto that, you'll get a strong bond, but you do have a bit of wobble that way. These ones just mitigate some of that very slightly. It's not a lot, but I think it is a worthwhile difference. That is a good size. That's fantastic. Am I going to be able to get the screw down there, or should I screw it on first? That is the big question for me. Oh, tiny stuff. Antweights are dumb. Definitely going to drop this, by the way. Definitely end up getting another set out. Yep, that's all good. I'm actually just going to waste the rest of this. Oh, there we go. That is the end of that glue stick's useful life. Just so I can get the next one in, and I'll blur that out. There we go. Just get the next one going and ready, so I won't have to stop halfway through this, because that would be very annoying. Very annoying indeed. It's kind of important to get these as centered as I can, but I'm honestly not sure how centered I can get them. So like that, I probably want to be going on the sort of top side of it, but that's about all I can do. This isn't even something I can drill lathe later, you know, because it's a soft material. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just do it. If it's crap, I'm going to redo it. Because that is the way of the speed build. Oh, I'm piping hot glue directly onto my finger through these holes. It's not smart. Do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, that's just... Oh, very warm. Very warm. Just heard a voice outside. Don't know what's going on. Hope they're not looking for me. Because that would be something I'd have to cut, and that would be very annoying. Yeah, hot glue's awful. Well, that's on. And I've completely... Oh, that's going to be a problem. There's glue all up in there. What can I remove that with? I don't really have anything I can remove it with in the time it's going to take for it to set, which it probably already has. Let's get the scissors in there and see what I can do, but... We'll face that problem later, together. That's right, it's your problem now. Because you're going to have to watch me fix it. Man, that wind is picking up. This is not good. Maybe that's a smarter way of holding this time to avoid piping hot glue, you know, directly onto myself. I'm still going to catch my thumb. Ow. What I've learned the trick is with hot glue is just not to care about the pain. I did consider, when I was sort of thinking about these wheels, because they really are the only bit I pre-planned, I did consider whether I should do a kind of polycarb outer and then do some screws through the servo horn, and sort of sandwich it properly, a little bit like a really ghetto version of the actual sort of Fingertech and other brand foam wheels. But then I realised that would be effort, so I didn't do it. Well, I think might as well try and screw those on. I'm kind of trying to work out at this moment how close I am to actually finishing this. Because it could be like 20 minutes away if I just rushed through cutting some foam board. It's a question of all the internal mounting and that stuff and what energy and thought I'm going to have to put into that. That's the unknown here. What did I do with that? Phew. See, losing that would have been annoying. The nice thing is, once these are on, I can actually give it a test drive. Sorry, forgot I was making a video for a second there. It's easily done. Big boy screwdriver, will you? No. When I was first sort of getting set up for building stuff, I did do what I think everyone does, bought the cheapest available tools, and I'm now kind of reaching a point where I'm appreciating the value that better tools could have in my life. I think the screwdrivers might be the next to get an upgrade. It's not completely solid, but I think it is largely in there, you know? I think it's just the SG90s being cheap, giving them a little bit of wobble. Screws, yes, good. I'm wondering if this just became a two-part video. Because I am hungry, and I need to send people money. And these are both good reasons to take a little break and come back. Plus I don't know how Sam would viscerally react to a 4-hour video. But I do want to get this to a point where we can at least drive it first. So let's quickly find the tape. Don't need to get the tape off yet. That was silly of me. But I'm thinking, let's just quickly get some components roughly taped down and quickly give this a test drive. So that can go there. Is that correct? Who knows? This can go there. They're in the right way up, that's all I care about. If I need to change the channel they are, then I will do that. And now this is the way of the test drive. I'm just going to start like crudely taping wires together. It's one big, I mean, this is a very literal interpretation of a wiring loom, I guess. That's not the sticky side, you absolute bellend. There we go, and the switch is still accessible. We'll then find a battery. There it is, hiding amongst a pile of other stuff where batteries should. I'm just gonna glue that down here for now. This isn't a test of handling or anything, this is just making sure that everything This is really a test of mixing, to be honest, and seeing how good the wheels are. They may be having all the... You know, maybe weight distribution does matter for this test, so maybe I should put this in a slightly more realistic place, like here. Wiring is going to be an issue in here. Wiring is definitely going to be an issue. If we just... Big lot of tape. Perfect. Flawless. That's combat ready, that is. Maybe a little more like that. Battery's coming up. Perfect. There you go. It's just together. It's fine. So not fine. It's disgustingly far from fine. Clear the test area. Remember to power on the transmitter first. There we go, don't even need to press anything, so I've already got things in the right place. And let's see if my mixing is correct. It is and it isn't. That right servo is not behaving as it should. It's kind of fine. Is this just a question of trim, or what is it? Have I done some weird scaling or something? Oh. That's worse, that's way worse. It kind of goes straight. One of these servos did already have a horn on it, which means that I'd used it before and potentially rejected it. So it could be that this servo is just not okay. Because the mixing does seem to be correct. Have I done some weird scaling somewhere? Have I got some really weird... Okay, I've got some sub-trim. Maybe that's something to do with it? Although I would have done that for a sane and sensible reason, I'm sure. Got some big sub-trim there, wow. Wow, that sub-trim appears to have been important. We'll keep that as it is, shall we? Is it just a vastly different speed servo? There's some scaling, maybe there's some scaling happening on one of the channels. Although again, that should... No, I don't know enough about the mixers to know if that would actually change anything. Scale is normal. Scale is normal. Weird. Very weird. Oh, and now it's not moving at all. Okay, that's even better. Well, that makes me think that maybe it is something to do with that servo. Or could it be the way that I've wrapped all my wires together? It's hard to say. Either way, I'm going to leave it there. Because I want food. So that has been a 2-hour video of not managing to complete an Antweight. Why are you here? What's wrong with you? Go do something better with your time. Yeah, I will finish this another day. I'll probably do some debugging off camera. I might also do some dreaded soldering as well, just to get these wires under control, because that almost certainly isn't helping. Yeah. Robots. They're arseholes.